Okay, this is the book that I was going to originally write, and I didn't. I opened up a YouTube, and then I had a couple more dreams. I'll go ahead and describe all the other dreams in other videos, but first I'll go ahead and cover this, as I did suggest, or probably tell somebody indirectly, if not directly, that I would. Okay, here we go. Worldwide Earthquake 2019. That would have been my main title. Observations of Earth cycles and analysis of a 2018 dream. The dream state. Morning analysis. The story begins with a dream about an earth-changing event that occurred on the 30th of November 2018. The visual description presented in the first chapter is just what I seen. I assumed it was some sort of mega earthquake, having characteristics of past documented earthquakes. This book is an attempt to describe the possibilities of this dream and the possible causes that could lead to these physical changes that I seen in the dream. November 30th, 2018 was the day I woke up to the Earth's changing events. This dream may have no literal meaning at all. And if you are more curious about the connections I made after this date, skip to day 1, tectonic shifts. That would have been, I guess, my second chapter. Remember, the following was just a dream. News networks were covering this event. Okay, so this is the dream state. News networks were covering this event possibly in real time. It appeared to be multiple news networks and perspectives. There was a flood of images that I was exposed to. I know I forgot something. Something was there, not obvious or hidden in the images. Something had communicated that this Earth event was happening worldwide. There was a real sense of consciousness. It all felt real at the time. I didn't doubt that any of it was happening during the dream. I must have been receiving signals other than the visual images of the destructive earthquake. I don't remember any sound. There was images that I can't remember. These forgotten images may have had some importance or value. No pause was offered to digest the visual volume of this place. Any questions that developed occurred after the experience. A shift in perspective was apparent, going between the perspective of a broadcast or third person and my own perspective. Signs of a disaster in the forms of news coverage were evident. Buildings were completely leveled in one area of focus, with the open desert as the landscape. The red sands of this land reminded me of Utah or Arizona. This area must have been significant. Many buildings were destroyed across other parts of the country. Most of these images appeared to be presented in real time. The scenes were unfolding as I watched. I don't remember feeling anxiety. The survey was continuous. Most of what I can remember, or what I was shown, was in the desert landscape. The outline of former structures and parking lots cycled briefly. All of the former structures in one area had disappeared into the ground, leaving only shadows of smoke. The upward draft of curling smoke in the aftermath disguised the hidden depths of the new landscape. A family that once occupied a distant parking lot fell victim to this dramatic change. The entire outlining of the area of the parking lot that the family had occupied dropped below the surface of the earth. Black billowing smoke was all that remained of the parking lot. There was 2 children and a woman, with a man not too far behind the woman. The man was approaching from behind the woman as the scene was unfolding. The woman was fixing the coat of the children while speaking to both of them. I remember focusing sharply on the woman as she spoke. I couldn't make out any of the words the woman spoke. I was taken away just before they all vanished. The surveyed area of the collapsed parking lot was presented in a type of replay loop. Each glimpse of the take became less clear or defined. It all became a fading memory, a loss of vision, or a loss of contact with a broadcast that I tried to seem to make any sense in this place. Not even a memory of their reaction from this abrupt, completely overpowering event remained. It was too sudden in this area, too complete in its onset of devastation. The surveyed site of still and vast areas of land was unmistakable. No one could have survived any of this destruction. Most of the observed structures fell to the same fate, simply vanishing in a single inhalation. The energy of the family's last breath was somehow felt. Upward gusts of smoke plumes reoccurred throughout the landscape and replaced the former structures. The earth coughed up churned mass with an energy not comparable to anything I have ever seen or felt. Cities were affected. How would any of this be televised? Many of these images appeared to be broadcast. Was I seeing any of this? I was brought to a large area of desert. There were red sands here. Fissures are prevalent. There appeared to be nothing in this rural desert area, no signs of human occupancy. There was only damaged earth from a major earthquake. Large gashes, cracks as wide as the train cars, with depths unknown, scarred the earth in this location. These characteristics had revealed something different in the action of this destruction. The cracks appeared to be fresh, resembling some giant watermelon split open from a blunt force impact or a violent drop. All uniformity had gone. Images of surveyed land no longer resembled images once depicted by their former topography. A small percentage of what appeared to be Idaho was gone. I remember repeating to myself within thought, 5% or more of lower Idaho, almost as a reminder or effort to make note upon waking. I cannot be absolute about the actual state that I seen. There was some kind of distortion or lack of resolution. I'm almost sure it was Idaho, and the other states surrounding it. There was some lack of perfect clarity, a fog of some sort. I was nearly convinced that it was Idaho that I had seen upon waking. Was this ground zero for the event? What was so special about Idaho, if this was occurring worldwide? I'm certain that it was an area similar in every way to the western United States. Perhaps that part of the observation was news coverage. The land mass in focus was presented in a graphical form, almost like news graphics. New canyons, never present before, now simply existed in this world. After this event, the images were clear. This earth and its land had literally fallen or collapsed. There was something else. I was taken to another location, a different place entirely, to a town in a more rural area. I remember passing through the center of the town where there was a pit or a quarry. I cannot remember if it was an active mine or if it was a basement or foundation for a building project. It was nearly the size of a coliseum, big in comparison to a small town near it. Maybe not much bigger than a college or NFL football stadium. This was the most notable image I could recall before arriving to some residential parcel of land. There was around 20 or 30 people on this small piece of land. All I observed were outside a home that was near the front of the land. The home was relatively small, 800 square feet. The garage was set in the back of the land, with a paved drive that passed the house. Some of the people at this location seemed familiar. The focus here seemed to be a blond man, in his late 20s. The blonde or off balance. The blond man was being harassed by these other men. It looked as though they, 3 or more men, being the off-balanced, stabbed way. The men were almost cruel in their aggression. At this moment, the earthquake may have already begun. I might have misinterpreted the scene. I kept pace with the blond man as he a few meters. There was a sense of urgency as we made our way towards the road. I remember looking back while I remained ahead of him. I don't know if I was guiding him towards the end of the driveway. I don't know if I was unobserved. Before we make it to the road, I looked away to my right, observed a machine within a glare of light. The image I observed was momentary. I seen a dog-like machine, but had a glass half-oval dome covering the entire upper portion of its body, above the legs. The dome looked alien and very aerodynamic. As I looked back towards the blond man, I observed him partially below the ground. A giant crack had opened up along the side of the road, where the man vibrated, almost sifting into the soil. He had already made his way down the road a small distance before being consumed by the earth. This robot came out of nowhere from my right shortly after, as the blond man was my left. The blond man was still on the same side as the property. I observed what had happened to him. He eventually settled into the moving dirt and was backfilled up to his neck. A large object tumbled, covering his head. It was a concrete block standing over him. In a timeless shift, I was standing over him. I cannot remember if the earth stopped moving. The situation seemed more frenzied. Some soil and the heavy block that was covering the man's head was removed. I cannot explain how the debris was removed. Anxiety hit. At this point, I was horrified in finding he was still alive. The blond man seemed okay. I was literally taken back from the scene. The back of his head was still. I was close to see that he was murmuring, seemingly unaffected by his. There was no sound to determine any audible language or dialect. I struggled from my angle to see his lips move several more times. I was behind, but more to the. Then another. I was even further from him on this second shift. At this point in the event, the robot-looking dog arrived. Was the blonde man communicating with this robot with a Bluetooth? Did he call this machine? This machine was swift. The nimble legs of a machine maneuvered amazingly well, positioning behind the blonde man. I can clearly recall a flap of some sort dropping like a lower jaw from the underside of this domed machine. The machine initiated some function and effort of pulling on the man. I have no recollection of this man's fate past this point. The anxiety of the moment was still fresh when I first recalled the observation on the morning of November 30th, 2018. It was only then, after waking up, that I began asking all these questions. Again, the whole observation went without any questioning. I grasped at questions that may have helped preserve the observation upon waking. I cannot say why I was unable to question any of it during the observation. The time was around, or very close to, 5:20 a.m. EST, 11:30:18. I want to say 5:17 a.m. EST. It would be around 5 or 6 hours later that the Alaskan earthquake would occur, around 7.2. And initially I wanted to call this the day one event.